This is Scratch Your Own Itch, the one show that delivers the conversations that we're afraid to share, but need to. This show is all about creating a life worth living. I'm Logan Tyler Nelson, and I'm your host. So, you're going to hear conversations with creators and entrepreneurs talk about what they do, their current and past traumas, how they became who they are, and what they are truly curious about. This is the show where we talk about the things we think about a lot, but need to talk about more. Please take note that this show is not a substitute for actually creating a life worth living, because this show will stir your beliefs, make you question what it means to create a life worth living. So my promise to you is to always give you one question to answer for yourself today, to start turning your dreams into a reality. Hey, ladies and gents, or friends, or hey guys, or who knows at this point. How about you choose the way I introduce these shows? That'd be pretty cool. So like you could tune in and be like, hey, I don't like guys, I like ladies and gents. So yeah, anyways. My favorite quote for this week is, "You are the sum of the 5 people that you most associate yourself with." And that's from Jim Rohn. Another thing I want to talk about is this awesome opportunity for you to get on a podcast. The thing is over 116 million people tune into podcasts each year. And it's risen from 2016 24%. That means that people are actually listening to podcasts 5 times more than they're actually seeing films nowadays, which is pretty cool. Really cool for people that are speakers, or authors, or maybe they're a coach, and they want to get their message out there because they know they have a message that can change someone's life, change it for the better. So I want to invite you to getting yourself on a podcast, and you can message me on Facebook if you're having trouble getting on podcast. I'm here for you. Also, I want to let you guys know that this episode is with the one and only Philip McKernan, as the title says. And you will be blown away. We'll unlock the codes in this episode to why it's sometimes good to put down the book and why sometimes it's just better to believe in yourself. So, enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the other side. So, my curiosity question for you is, how often do you look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I happy? Let me ask you that again. How often do you look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I happy? Okay, let me set the tone. How often have you taken a good hard look at your life and then had this overwhelming tidal wave of judgment? And the judgment turns into fear about your future. Fear is something we learn to live with, though. Whether it is fear of a conversation, fear of a choice, fear of hurt, or fear of consequences. It's there, and it's so real. The trick with fear is not to live in the shadows of it, but to look at it straight in the eyes and do it anyways. The fear is always going to face us no matter what. If any of this resonates with you, this talk about fear, this episode is for you. Because my guest today is taking the fear in some of the most successful people that have set foot on this earth and shaken them so they can actually start being the person that they were meant to be. My guest is Philip McKernan. He takes people that feel as if they can't ever be complacent or ever be themselves. Philip McKernan is a philosopher, international best-selling author, and some say an enlightened hooligan. Philip has traveled the world speaking about the importance of overcoming personal obstacles, gaining clarity, and cultivating the confidence to believe in yourself, and has shared the stage with esteemed speakers such as Stephen Covey, Richard Branson, and the Dalai Lama. He has worked with people from Olympic athletes, TV personalities, entrepreneurs, housewives, to billionaires who have gone bankrupt, and everything in between. So, without further ado, please give a warm welcome to the one and only Philip McKernan. Hey, Philip, man.
How's it going?
Hey, good. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, like I said earlier, I appreciate you taking the time and spending it with myself and everyone that's listening right now. Wow, you do some crazy work, but I'm sure you hear that some often, some people coming to you and going, wow, you really changed my life. So I want to start off with that first question of what is it like to be stared into the eyes of someone where their eyes are just kind of like balling up because literally you've said something that they feel has changed their life. What is it like to do that?
Well, I'm glad you start with an easy question. Holy shit. I mean, for me, honestly, when you read out the introduction, and I appreciate the amount of time and energy and effort you put into it, but I feel somewhat disconnected from it in the sense that I find it hard to own all of the things that you said and even the things that are factual about, not that they're not factual, but in terms of your own interpretation in between. But it's difficult for me to, I point blank refuse to take full ownership for people's growth because I don't believe it's my place to do so. So when someone looks into my eyes or I look into their eyes and I see a really pivotal moment where they've shifted or changed or discovered something about themselves or gotten out of their own way or discovered a massive block that perhaps they've been avoiding, to some extent I feel I'm simply a vessel. And I don't just mean this in a cliche context. I really feel that they're the one that has been they're the courageous one. They're the one that's done the work. And I feel that my lack of ownership is not a lack of belief because I'm really good at what I do and I'm very proud of what I do. But it's really about making sure that they own their own growth. If I take too much of that away from them, what I'm doing is I'm setting them up to rely on me and rely on other people and also to believe that they don't have the answers themselves, which I believe they do. So hopefully my answer makes some sort of sense. But yeah, I just, when I create an environment that someone gets really, really moved and gets clear on who they are and steps into more meaningful things in their lives, whether it's work, relationships, or whatever, I play a very tiny role in that. My clients suggest I play a much bigger role, but I really look back with a degree of pride towards them.
Wow. Yeah, I know that's a huge question. I appreciate it. You just jumping in the pool with me and getting deep right away because your work, it requires that. It doesn't, it's not this sort of like, hey, how are you doing today, Fred? Oh, fine, great, let's go up, on with our day. You really get deep and I wanted though, take a few steps back before we go a million miles away from your story and start with how you got into this and how you started becoming super, in touch with yourself and aligned with yourself again after having maybe a failure in your life. Could you take us back to that time when, things were kind of spiraling out of place where you felt like you needed to change?
Yeah, I think it wasn't a period of my life. It felt like my entire life was that. My entire life felt like it was spiraling out of control to some extent. I never felt I was in control. I still don't believe I'm in control, but I do feel now I have way more influence in my life, which is a big, energetically it's very different, because control is a complete illusion. And yet so many of us in this world try to control the outcome, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in the work we do, the business we do. And I find that the more I let go of control, the more fluent my life tends to be. But I think for the most part, I think the simplest answer to this is that there wasn't periods of my life that felt disconnected. I think it felt like there was a whole mass of my life was disconnected. And therefore, I could rationalize and justify that what I was doing at the time and where I was going was gonna make a difference, was going to be okay, was going to work out in the end. And thankfully, I had the courage to take a step back in my life and seek some counsel and ask the questions that I either didn't know how to ask or didn't want to ask, because I certainly didn't want the answer. And those questions were at that time, very simple. And they were, am I really, just building on what you suggested at the beginning, am I really happy with my life? And the word really changes the whole tonality of that question, and therefore its possibility to go deeper within us. And the answer to those questions were, am I really aligned to the work I want to do? Do I really have a very healthy relationship with myself? Do I really have deep and meaningful relationships with the people I love around me? And the sad reality, in many cases, those questions, gave out answers that in many cases were no. And people often don't want to come to that conclusion because they don't want to experience the sadness. They don't want to feel the disconnectedness. But it wasn't until I felt the disconnectedness that I realized how much pain and how much disconnect and how much remorse I had, and how much I would have and regrets in the future if I didn't address it. So what it gave me was this pivotal point in my life where I had the choices to step in and address these things or not.
Wow. One thing I find, though, this huge obsession that some of us may fall into, those people that love self-help books and they read it over and over and over because they just want to be happy again, and I don't blame them. But I believe that there's this paradox, and it happened to me, and I kind of go through it from time to time. I can't say that I don't still have this happen to me, where it's almost a paradox of happiness. Like, you kind of chase happiness because you've been feeling so down, and you feel like you've been doing everything right and it's still not going right. And then you go, okay, I just need to sit down and really ask myself, am I really happy? And then you start going after it. Why do we have that paradox that happens to us? Or, well, what's your opinion, at least, on it? Where you do kind of go down that road of trying to be happy again, and it actually turns and punches you right in the face, and you actually become almost worse off.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges in the world today is so many of us are living in our brains, so many of us are living in our minds, so many of us are so disconnected that we're living in the upper part of our bodies, and I'm talking about from the neck up. And to me, I mean, I lived like that for most of my life, and I feel to a large extent, I was like a dead man walking, which is, basically this robotic person that was walking the earth. And I feel a lot of our approaches and desires and our actions in order to be happy are made from that place. The decision-making process happens there, the execution happens there, and then we don't connect with the essence of who we really are. And for some, this might sound corny and cliche and magic doves and butterflies flowing around, and that's fine if it does, because I'm not going to apologize for what I believe is the truth. And I think, again, we a lot of us say, I think this will make me happy. And again, the story that I told myself during this long period of disconnectedness in my life was, when I make enough money, then I'll have the freedom to go and do what I want, which sounds so logical. It makes so much sense on so many levels. But the reality is complete bullshit for me. And I wasn't ready to hear that it was bullshit. The reality is, the longer I spent doing things to make money that were disconnected from who I am, the further I moved away from who I was. So you can't just turn that shit off when you're 40 or when you're 35 or when you're 50 and you have all this money in the bank, and then you say, now I'm ready to do what I want, because you've lost who you are along the way. So self-help books, I'm sure, there's some great ones out there. I mean, I've written some books, and yet I'm not a massive believer in reading copious and masses amount of books. I think we're consuming way too much information. But if you're somebody that reads books, or somebody that reads books that goes, oh my God, this book has changed my life, just turn around and ask them one question. How How exactly did it change your life? And what you'll find for a large majority of people is they go, no, it just changed my life. And I go, yeah, great, but how exactly? What did you do exactly in order to change your life? Because what I find is we get really enthusiastic about this message, and a lot of the wisdom or the information that we're consuming is coming from other people. What I'm fascinated with, obsessed with, is the wisdom that you have inside of you that is dormant, that has yet to be dusted down, taken out, played with, being, held, hugged, thrown up in the air, given breathing space to live and to bring that into your life. I find that the greatest gurus in the world are in the mirror every single day. In other words, the greatest guru in the world, I believe, is you. Just many of us don't believe that. I know I'm talking myself out of a job here. I know my coaching business will not exist if everybody wakes up to this reality. But the reality is it's true. Everything you want, everything you need, everything you are, everything that you are meant to be is within you. I do not believe that's some cliche statement taken out of some Gospels or some Buddhist saying. I believe it to my core, and I've proved it thousands of times. My job is to help people uncover that and bring that to the surface.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Gosh, I don't know who said it, but I do remember reading some quote of wisdom is everything you need to know, you already have. Every single piece of wisdom that you've ever needed, you've already had. You've already put into your consciousness, and it's there to just download it whenever you want. But
yeah.
I think that there is a conundrum of information out there, like that's abundance of information, and it almost becomes a little bit of an intoxication for a lot of us. And I think the more information you consume, the more I guess secure someone may feel. And so
actually, if I may jump in there for a second,
yeah.
I would argue, and I would like to just throw it out there to the world, that actually is logically makes a ton of sense. And I'm not trying to correct you personally. I'm just throwing this out there. I'd love to just throw this out there for people to consider and sit with. Is that I think part of the reason that we obsess and consume so much information is this desire to feel secure with our own skin. But I think the amount of information that we consume to some extent illustrates how insecure we are. And the more insecure we are, that really drives this deep inner want or need to be secure. So in other words, what I'm really saying is the people that want to be secure are the most insecure in the world. And more information is not going to do it. It's just never going to answer the question, because what they're doing is they're answering many logical things. They're ticking the boxes off, but deep down, they're not addressing a pattern or something that's going on within them, not just a belief, more than a belief. Some part of them, some part of their story is incongruent within their hearts, within their souls, within their minds, and they're not addressing that. And I think if I could go even a step further I think to some extent we consume, let's just stick with self-help books. We consume multiple self-help books to kind of almost validate at a really weird level, at a subconscious level, that actually it's not the information that's the problem, it's me. I'm broken, I'm unworthy, I'm not capable, etc. And one of the personal examples I remember many years ago when I was really disconnected, and I still have more, connection to do and connecting to do, and my work has still to grow in ways that I cannot even imagine, including myself. But I remember years ago going to a conference and somebody said, oh, meditation is the answer. And if you're not meditating 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the evening, you're missing out. In fact, you're destined not to be successful, or one of those kind of messages. And in that moment, I went, finally, my missing link. Now I know what I'm missing. Now I know when I'm not successful. Now I know why I'm out of alignment. Now I know why this whisper has become a nudge, become a roar that is screaming at me, McKernan, get off the train tracks, because this is not going to end well. And I started meditating in the morning and the evening, and meditating in the morning and evening. I did it for about 7 days. And at the end of the 7th day, I hated meditation. I hated the guy who told me about it. But more importantly, I hated myself, because I felt that I couldn't even achieve meditation. That's how much of a failure I was. And what I was doing was I was using this next trick, this next thing, to basically validate deep down that I was broken. And the reality is that meditation can be important for some people. I don't really meditate. I do it now and again. I see the value of it, but it's not the singular answer. And I wasn't addressing some other underlying fundamental things in my life that were holding me back. And I was looking for the next great tool outside of myself. And yet everything I had was inside, or everything I needed was inside.
Oh, it's that shiny ball syndrome, I think, that people hear about some famous person doing it, or someone that has really great results from this certain new exercise that they've implemented in their life, and they go and they adopt it, and they think that it's going to give them everything that person got from it too. And I know I totally resonate with that, as well as
I saw an article recently, and I know you want to move on, but I just want to share this one other thing. I saw an article recently: what successful people eat for breakfast. I mean, Jesus, have we got that lost? That now, I'm not talking about the healthy nature, the energetic nature of eating good breakfast versus bad breakfast in terms of your energy. But what they were basically implying through this article is that if you eat this type of granola that Richard Branson eats, you're going to have the same kind of results. It was the subtext within this article. It's like to say that, okay, I'm unwilling to address, some of my own personal fears, my deep-rooted sense of sabotage and self-doubt or lack of belief. But if I eat this granola that Richard Branson eats, then that's going to be a huge step in the right direction. And that's the sort of information that we're getting in the world today. And the sad reality is a lot of people are buying it. They're buying into this thing. So what they're doing is they're modeling people, which I think is incredibly dangerous, despite the fact that so many people read about this and live up to this. So I take bits of everybody around me that I feel are successful. And number one, it's an illusion because I haven't really lived with them. So I don't know if they're truly successful in life and on and off the ice. So I'm making an assumption that I read an article about somebody. I take this piece out of their life, what they eat for breakfast, for example. I read another article about somebody else, and I take this piece out of their meditation practice, and I take this piece out of their rituals, and I take this piece out of somebody else. Before you know it, I'm spending 2 or 3, 4 hours, 5 hours of my day doing shit that other people do, some of which is aligned to me, but some of it is not. So I'm diluting who I am in the hope that I become successful doing something I don't want to do. It is beyond. And when I say this with this energy, I'm not judging. I'm actually, to some extent, judging myself because I did it for years. What I'm asking people to consider is, like, what is it that you want to do? Like a lady recently said to me, I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook and I'm doing all this thing. I'm still not getting momentum. And I go, do you like Twitter? She goes, no, I can't stand Twitter, but you have to be on it. And I went, according to who? She goes, well, I went to this marketing course and they told me I had to be on Twitter. No, bullshit. If you don't want to be on Twitter, don't be on Twitter. If you don't want to do blogs, don't be on blogs. If you don't want to be on Facebook, don't be on Facebook. Lean into this world in a way that honors you. And I promise you the world will honor you back.
Oh, man. Wow. Yeah. That leads me kind of to my next, this is perfect because it sounds very much like what you've sort of dubbed the aligned life, is when someone actually starts to become what they were, I'm scared of this word because meant to be is like, kind of woo-woo for some to hear, like, oh, you're finally doing what you're meant to do, but more so when you become aligned, the sort of things that you want to really do, which is a big question. Like, sometimes I'll get on calls with people too, and they'll ask me, like, Logan, what do you really want to do? Like, what is it? And I guess I kind of want to flip that on you, Philip McKernan, is, you're doing this coaching practice, which you seem very fulfilled in doing, but I don't know your whole life. Like, I see what you've put out there, but is it really, like, do you ever have moments when you're doing this work where you do kind of question it and go, like, am I doing what I'm meant to do right now?
No, my life is perfect. Everything is awesome. And my farts don't smell. Everything in my life is just absolutely pristine and beautiful. And of course, that's what I meant to say, or that's what people often make assumptions. Of course I have doubts. Of course I question my work. Of course I question myself. Of course, because I'm human. As long as I put my fingers on my wrist and I feel a pulse, as long as that is there, I'm going to have moments of absolute doubt. I've got days where I wake up sometimes and I go, God, like, am I just talking to a wall? Is the world ready for this? Does the world want this? Am I full of shit? Am I fake? Am I whatever it happens to be? And it's not necessarily the fake piece. I feel that I've never been more authentic, and yet I've a ton of time, massive amount of time to go. I think the saddest thing for me, and I broke down crying in front of a bunch of clients recently, and people would say, "Oh my God, that was a moment of weakness." No, it was a moment of immense strength, because I was allowing myself to be vulnerable in front of the people that I care about deeply and I love, and I want so much for them. And one of the things that frustrates me and saddens me at the same time in the world today, and again, this is not meant to judge people. This is just the way I speak. I'm passionate. I'm direct. Is that some of us just don't want to see how amazing we could be. Some of us just don't want to see how gifted we are. Some of us don't want to see that we're capable of actually making an impact in this world. And when I say the world to me is you're in your own backyard, in your own home, in your community. It could be speaking on stage, it could be writing books. But I think impact is one of these things that people shy away from, and they say, "Oh, impact's just for the big names and the big speakers and the big philanthropists and everything else." Bullshit. The impact is for everybody. And to me, that one of the saddening things, and I can connect with this truly, because I feel that I didn't want to see it in myself, or couldn't see it in myself. And I often, one of my clients said to me, "You believe in us more than we can ever believe in ourselves most of the time." And that is a burden that I carry, because I care so deeply about humanity. I care so deeply about people. And that burden weighs really heavy on my shoulders. And it's a choice. And I feel it keeps me honest, and I feel it keeps me going, and I feel it keeps me absolutely fired up, because my journey is not about Philip McKernan. My ego wants the accolade. My ego wants to be put on a pedestal. My ego wants that beautiful introduction that you wrote. But personally, I'm not here for me. I'm here to serve as many people as I can with a gift, if I have one, until it's taken away from me when I abuse it, or I die and it goes to somebody else. That's my view.
Oh, man. I hear that and I go, like, that is the kind of person I want in my circle of people, and the thing is, though, I think that, and you may have gotten asked this question before, that some people go, "So Philip, you run a coaching business, huh? You coach people, but you're kind of like a therapist too, then, huh? Like, what does that mean to you when they go into the, like, you're a coach, but you're a therapist? Like, how do you handle that question when people ask you that?"
There's a therapeutic nature to my work. I've got no qualifications. I've got no degrees. I've got no certificates. I've got no life coaching courses behind me, none of that stuff. And I'm not saying there's no value in that. I just think a lot of it's theoretical, and a lot of it's intellectual. And I feel that, what I bring to the table is, I will bring any methodology in that's required in order to get people through the blocks that they're facing. I've done a lot of that work myself over many, many years. And I'm now attracting, psychologists and psychiatrists have come to my work, counselors, therapists, some of the best coaches and speakers in the world I'm now doing some work with, whether it's privately or in groups. And I'm very humbled by that. I never imagined that. That was never part of any vision. But I feel that, there's a therapeutic nature to my work. Am I a therapist? No. Am I a coach? No. Am I Philip McKernan? Yes, as much as I can be. So if we've got to, take a therapeutic approach to somebody who's getting in their own way and just can't get out of it, I'll go there. And there used to be a time where I'd apologize for, people often joke within our circles, "Oh, Philip McKernan makes people cry." And it was a bit of a this is kind of funny and everything else. And I realized, actually, hang on a second, I don't make anybody cry. I create an environment that they may choose to cry. They may need to cry in many cases. And, they may get angry and mad and everything else. But I'm relentless, and I am extremely compassionate. Unless people know me, they don't realize how much compassion I have for humans. But I'm so compassionate. I care so much. I'm also willing to be ruthless in my pursuit of individual's truth. I don't give a shit whether someone lives in Las Vegas or Afghanistan. I don't give a shit whether somebody is a coach or a painter. I don't give a shit whether you believe in Christianity or Buddhism. I don't really care. But what I do care about is it actually true for you? Is that just what you've adopted from society, adopted or inherited from your parents? Is it something you think you should be? Or is it actually your individual core truth? Are you really happy living where you are? Are you truly engaged with the work you do? Do you really honor your gifts every day, not just your talents? Are you showing up in a way that you are going to die in your deathbed many years from now with no regrets? If you can honestly answer all those questions with 100% yes, you never need to see me. You never need to come out to my work. But what if you're wrong? What if it's not true? What if it's just your mind overriding your heart saying, "Hey, buddy, you're okay. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's all going to work out." Because statistically, if that's the case, we're all screwed, because 90% of people die with regret is the study. I actually think that's bullshit. I think it's 98, 99% of people die with some significant life regrets about not showing up as a parent, about not doing the work they want to do, and about not really connecting with themselves and allowing other people to love them and to see their vulnerabilities and their truths. And I'm on this earth to eradicate as much regret as I possibly can before I kick the bucket.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with all that what you just said is so resonating with me. But truth is just, it's such a terribly hard thing to do sometimes, to get in touch with. When
Why? 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 And again, I'm not here to challenge. I just want to challenge that statement, because that is a statement that almost everyone says to me, and also with respect, also a statement that I would have fundamentally believed in. But isn't it interesting? I did a keynote speech yesterday for a company called Techstars who are based in Boulder here, and the founder asked me to come in, and he said, "Listen, I want you to talk about vision and alignment as it relates to their personal lives, and then we're going to build on that in terms of the business and where we're going." And one exercise I did yesterday, ironically, I did this exercise in a prison on Friday with about 70 inmates, who many of which have committed, pretty horrendous crimes in order to get there. But these all have remorse. They all have regret. They all want to impact. They want to change their lives. They want to make an impact in the world. And then fast forward to yesterday, and I did this exercise with about 200 people in Boulder. And it's the same exercise. And I got people to simply identify their 5 happiest days of their life. What are the 5 happiest days of your life? Now, not blissfully happy from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. It could have been a moment. It could have been a minute. It could have been an hour. It could have been just a part of a day. It could have been a hug. It could have been something somebody said to you, something you said to somebody. That represents a day that contained one of the happiest moments in your life. And yet, the exercise itself, no matter where I've done this in the world, is really difficult for people. And when you take a step back and think about this, I'm simply asking you to identify the 5 happiest days of your life, no more, no less. And people really struggle. And yet, if I said, okay, you know what, screw that exercise, let's do this, the 55 shittiest days of your life, people will be asking for more ink, more paper. They'd probably be able to fly through at least the first 20 or 30. So we as creatures, as humans, we tend to focus a lot more on the negatives than we do on the positives. And I'm not talking about gratitude here for the sake of being grateful. I'm talking about just really questioning our state of mind, our state of being. And it was fascinating to see that both groups equally struggled with this exercise. And the exercise, for those of you who want to participate in it, I can give you a link actually, and there's a video that walks people through it. If you don't mind afterwards, I can do that in the show notes. But it's just a simple exercise. You identify the days, and then you go deeper and say, why were these the most important days? And then you consider bringing more of those, not the experiences, but the feelings back into your life. And life leaves clues. So a lot of us are looking for passion and purpose and to honor our gifts. And yet all of those things, I believe, have already been contained in our personal narrative to date.
Okay. I love that. And the reason, oh gosh, I love that. I went to acting school, so I studied truth, I guess, my teacher would often call it, actors are athletes of emotions. And so sometimes I think truth, the reason why it is so hard for some of us to actually come into being able to actually stare at it in the face and go, yeah, this feels right. I'd rather be nowhere else right now. Even though it's not easy, I'd rather be here than anywhere else. And I talk about here as a very specific word because environment, like you said, you don't make people cry earlier. You just create an environment in which they may cry or they may not cry. And we use the word a lot in acting school, allow. Don't make yourself cry. Don't make yourself angry. it's about allowing it. And so I think a lot of your work actually lines up with what actors do, because it's about being able to set up the environment in which you can feel the allowance to feel whatever it is you're going through. And that creates a sort of wonderful connection that you can have with humanity, because everyone sees it as not maybe something that they like to see because it could be rageful, but at least they relate with the sort of circumstance that someone may be going through.
Yeah.
But I want to get into, because I know we've only got a limited amount of time, and I'd love to talk to you for 14
Yeah,
years.
keep going.
I just want to get into a few sort of questions that I cultivate throughout the week that I just need to ask you specifically. These
Cool.
questions. Awesome. So the first question I want to ask is, this is a tough one. So how do you know if someone keeps talking about this thing that they want to do, and they keep telling you so badly that they want to write a book, and then finally you go, then go write the book, and then they go and they have this sort of like, finally, okay, I've gotten the permission to write the book, and then they go write it, right? And they have a really hard time singling down and really focusing on what it is they want to write about. How do you help them get clarity in writing that book?
I don't. I absolutely don't. I have no interest in helping them get clarity about how to write the book, because what I want to go back, I want to take a step before that. I want to understand why they're not writing the book, because to me that sounds like a person who's no interest in writing a book, or they want to write a book for the wrong reasons. That's their ego speaking, because they're not demonstrating their ability or their desire to actually sit down and type. And what you'll find in that situation is, rather than, there's two ways you can go with this as a coach, right? So most people would say, okay, let's do a plan, let's keep accountability, let's agree on parameters, let's work on the storyline. I can drill that stuff in no time at all. And then you look at even another better question is, well, do you want to write the book in your head that you think will do well and will market well, or do you want to write the book in your heart that you know you need to write? Which one do you want to go for? That's all the tactical, strategic, that's the easy stuff. I want to know why they want to write the book. I want to do a deep dive into why exactly do they want to write this book. And someone will say things like, well, I want to write the book because I've always wanted to write a book. Okay, what does that mean? That means nothing to me. Go deeper. But why you? Well, I want to make a difference. Well, get in line, buddy. Everyone wants to make a difference. And I'll give you an example of this. So with the inmates that I worked with in the prison system, and again, people judge me for this, but I think everyone deserves a chance, particularly if they show that they truly want to make a change. I'm there to support them, whether it's in the U.S. military, whether it's in prisons, whether it's mom and dads, whether it's billionaires. I don't care who it is, as long as they want to make a difference. I'm willing to give them the shot. And what these guys do is they go through this program where they basically pitch a business in the end, and they get maybe funding when they come out to help them get this business off the ground, and they can better their lives and give back and so on. And one of the inmates gets up and he talks about this business he wants to create, and he says, I want to create this gym and everything else, and people are going to vote. And I said to him, he hasn't pitched his business yet. And I said, but why? I said, with respect, I said, I'm kind of bored listening to your pitch, because it's just like every other pitch in the world. It's like a Shark Tank environment. And he goes, and he looks at me and he's pissed off with me. He's so angry with me. And I said, I'm serious. Why do you want to open a gym? He says, because I want to make a difference. And I said, yeah, get in line. Look around the room. Hands up who wants to make a difference. Every hand went up. And I said, but why you? And he goes, because I understand the fitness industry. I said, it's not enough. I said, why? Like deep down in your core, why a gym versus a bakery? Why a gym versus something else? He goes, my grandmother died of obesity, and I want to prevent that for everybody else. And the next minute, every single person in the room just went, like literally, oh my God, wow. Everything in that moment changed. So we got to his core why, like why he versus somebody else. Because up to that point, and then he looked at me and says, but that you can't bring that story into a pitch. You can't bring that story into. I said, according to who? I said, if you don't bring that in, I said, I'm not going to vote for you, because to me, it's just you're just spouting out some bullshit that you think is important. But in this case, there's a wonderful deep why. If somebody's not writing a book, I would say to them, you're not demonstrating any desire to write a book, and I don't understand why you're writing a book. And most people don't stop. People have built entire organizations and businesses without understanding their real core belief. I've seen athletes go to the Olympic Games seeking validation from their father, waiting for those words, I am proud of you. And in many cases, they're not there for themselves. So we don't understand ourselves. We don't understand our narratives. We don't understand our gifts. And we make decisions that are logical. And we build things that sometimes take 5 or 6 or 7 years of our life. And we wonder why we run out of energy. We wonder why something was a passion once is not a passion anymore, because we were never aligned to it. So I would want to personally do a deep dive into why they want to write a book. I would absolutely expose their truth there, get them aligned, and help them. And I'm going to give you one other. I know I'm going on here, and I know you have other questions, but here's a real life example. A lady came to me, said, I've got a question. She said, I really want to write a book. And she says, I've just been approached by the biggest name in the industry in this particular area to write a book, to co-author with it. What do you think? And I said, well, my first question is, how badly do you want to write a book on a scale of 1 to 10? She said 12. I said, there's your first problem. And she goes, excuse me? I said, that's your first problem. She said, but doesn't that show commitment and desire? And I said, no, it shows attachment. It shows that you are so desperate to write a book that you would be prepared to write a book with anybody that makes sense intellectually, but emotionally it may not. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, do you trust this man? She goes, no. I said, well, do you want your name next to this person on every bookshelf for the next 10 or 15 years? And in that moment, she said, well, F you, she said, because she was mad at ultimately the truth that I brought. It was her truth, not mine. I was asking the questions. And she said, I know what I need to do. And she said, no. But here's the key thing. About 4 or 5 months later, I don't know the details, 4 or 5 months, she wakes up, she starts writing the book that's in her heart without the attachment, without the ego. She completes the book in 6 weeks, apparently. I think it was about 6 weeks. She self-publishes the book and it goes to #1 in Amazon. I'm not talking categories here. I'm talking #1 in Amazon in Canada. That's the difference between understanding why you're doing something as opposed to intellectually pursuing something because you think it's the right thing to do.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. It's like, to me, it speaks largely on this idea of wanting to doing something versus really needing to doing something. Like, you will absolutely die if you don't do this thing, versus like, I want to start it. I want to start a fitness business, and then not really knowing the core why. And then once you figure it out, it's like, now I need to start this fitness business or whatever it may be. So I really, I'm happy that you totally dissected that question. It was awesome. And
here's the key thing. If you don't get to the core of your why and you wake up and you don't have any clients and you don't know the phone's not ringing and you're having a bad day, and we'll all experience that, you need to go deeper into a place. You need to go into a place to find the fuel that will get you off your ass, get you off your back, get you off your knees, and be determined to make sure that this thing succeeds. And I'm talking about a depth that all of us have, and sometimes we don't believe it, or sometimes we don't have the energy. That depth is spiritual. So when I wake up in the morning and I have doubts, excuse me, I should have had that off. When I wake up in the morning and have doubts, what fuels me is this deep why that I can tap into that gets me up and goes, McKernan, get your shit together. This is not about you. This is the men and women who believe in you, believe in your work, and want to change. That's why I'm here. And I can delve into that reserve when I have a bad day. And if you can't do that, it means you're out of alignment.
Hey, Logan Tyler Nelson here. I would so appreciate it if you took some time to hit the subscribe button. I really want to just honestly live and give. Why? Because I was told when I was young that if you're feeling down, the best way to feel better is by lifting someone up again. So in an effort to make someone feel less alone, please hit the subscribe button so the podcast has a better chance of being found and making someone feel less alone. And if you're feeling down, hey, it can help you. Know that by hitting that subscribe button, you just did someone a huge favor. So thank you for hitting that subscribe button. Wow. Yeah. Oh man, it kind of goes into the questions I was gonna ask anyway. You kind of debunked all of it. And one of the questions was going to be a homework assignment, a piece of homework assignment for someone that may be listening, that does really like they're not. They have good intentions and they finally want to start placing their good intentions and have this attention to actually strengthen. Because I think when someone actually takes attention to themselves and starts to strengthen that attention, instead of just having good intentions, it's that person that's kind of like, okay, I've gone through it and I'm ready to show up now. Just like, the military says, attention. They said that for a reason. And so anyone that's listening right now, please take time. I know I'm going to take time to get this deep reflection in, and don't sit with it forever. Philip may agree with me that I think if you sit with it for too long, you might just sit there and wallow and think about, making the perfect plan instead of just actively going. And I would love to have you on, maybe in a later date or something, and see where your work kind of transforms into. But before you go, Philip, where can someone connect with you and find more of you, if they want to do so?
Well, a couple of things. I'm going to send you a link through for the 5 happiest days, and it's an exercise that we contextualize in a couple of videos. And again, it's just a free exercise. It's not going to cost anybody. You don't have to put your email in or anything else. So that's a bit of a homework assignment for people to do, because there's a lot of depth to the 5 happiest days exercise that I haven't got into. They can watch the film for free, which I'm going to give you the link for that. There's a documentary I did around the difference between a gift and a talent. I could talk for an hour on that. But the one thing that I would encourage people to do, and building on what you said there at the very end, was, again, you talk about, the naming of the podcast, scratch your own itch. And I'm a huge advocate of taking action. And I have a saying: in the absence of clarity, take action. In the absence of clarity, take action. I'm asking people to self-reflect as they move through this journey, for sure. But I'm not asking people to sit in a field full of daffodils and sit there for like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 months contemplating their next move. And I think one of the things we're very concerned about is falling flat in our face. And I love action. I've moved country from Ireland to Canada. I moved from Canada to the United States 18 months ago, and 99% of our revenue was in Canada. I've taken very big risks. I'm going to take a ton more. And I think we're so paralyzed by making a mistake. And the more action you take and the more you become familiar and comfortable with failure, with success, the more you'll be aligned. So in the absence of clarity, take action. I'm a huge believer in just pulling the trigger and just seeing what happens. And no matter what happens when you take action, the one thing that's guaranteed is additional clarity, good or bad, but it informs you moving forward. So other than that, philipmckernan.com is the main website. And then One Last Talk, which we haven't talked about. Maybe we'll talk about that another day. But onelasttalk.com, which is a movement we're creating that we're very passionate, which is all about truth. And you're going to see some very exciting things from that movement in the next couple of months.
Hey, are you a coach or an author or a speaker? If this is you, then I want you to check out Conveyor.com. It's a micro-learning platform in which you can create courses, challenges, and assessments and polls. Gather data or maybe make a course out of your incredible authority and thought leadership that you serve your peoples. So if you're someone who is saying things over and over again and you find yourself going, wow, okay, well, I wish I could systematize this or create a course out of it, Conveyor.com allows you to send text messages to people every single day with a little question or assessment, or maybe a new test that they can use to learn a certain subject. So check out Conveyor.com. Wow. Thank you so much, Philip. This has been a crazy 42 minutes, and it felt like literally 5 minutes just went by. So it's that sort of, oh man, wow, what a roller coaster ride. Please, if anyone has listened to this and any of this resonates with them, don't miss that opportunity that's just knocking on your door, because I know that you will be kicking yourself in the butt if you're listening to this and any of it resonates with you and you go, oh, I'm just going to kind of let it go by, because I did not make this podcast for someone just to listen to passively and go, I'm going to hit next on the next episode because I want to busy my mind with something else. I want you to really reach out to myself or Philip and get in contact with us and start asking us those deep questions, and start putting that stuff out there in the universe and start asking yourself those questions, because then it will propel you and require you to answer those questions that you know you need to answer. So thanks again, Philip, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, there's another episode of Scratch Your Own Itch. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to support the show by listening. The biggest compliment you could ever pay me is just by sharing this, because honestly, it doesn't take much, and it feels so good when people create something and take time. And when I see someone take time to create something that really just changed my day, either made me feel less alone, maybe put a smile on my face, made me laugh, made me feel wiser, I always want to share it with the world. Because why? When I share something that resonates with me, why not share it? I mean, that's just kind of the thing that goes around, and it's free. It takes no time at all other than just a click of the button, share, on either Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Any of those social media platforms would be great to share this. So I really appreciate it. And I want to say that anybody who's looking to gain authority or expertise in their area, and they don't want to take another year or year and a half to write a book and wait until that's published, I think the best way is right now is to start a podcast. So if you're at all interested in starting a podcast, if you meet the certain requirements, I would love to help you with a podcast and also get a website going for you as well. And this is not an easy task. It's hard to actually get it done and get it out there. So every now and then we need some help, and I'm here for you. So please reach me at Logan at LoganTylerNelson.com if you're interested at all. And don't ever forget, you matter and you're enough.